Hello, my friends. Jeff, Tax Rescue CPA. Uh-oh, did you just realize you made a mistake on your tax return? Now what? Is the IRS gonna come knocking? Will you owe penalties? Well, don't panic. I've got you covered. In this video, I'm gonna talk about what could have happened and how you need to fix it, and then what happens after the fix. All right, let's start off with talking about some common mistakes with tax returns. So sometimes you file a return and you have math errors or typos, maybe an incorrect filing status. Maybe you missed reporting some income, like some gig work or investment income. You filed your return and then these tax documents showed up afterward. What do you do now? Maybe you thought of, you know what? Could I have claimed that as a deduction? Did I leave my kid off the return? Yeah, these kinds of things. So let's talk about these. Well, there's one way to fix it, but there's two different things that could happen with these. So the first thing is, if it's a small mistake, a math error, maybe you reported the wrong amount of withholding from your W-2, you switched around a 4 and a 5, something like that. The IRS will usually catch these kinds of mistakes when your return is processed, and they'll fix them for you. Those kinds of fixes you will usually hear about relatively quickly, okay? If you made some error and the IRS fixes it on your behalf, you're gonna get a notice that says, hey, we made this error, we adjusted your return, and here you go. If you agree with it, don't do anything, it's processed, move on down the road. It's really the bigger mistakes that you need to be concerned about changing or amending your tax return. Now, okay, bigger and smaller, what are you talking about, Jeff? Well, think about the mistakes that the IRS won't know about and you need to fix. So things like you missed reporting some income, you missed a deduction, they're not gonna know anything about your charitable contributions, for example, or you didn't claim a child as a dependent that you could have, or you incorrectly claimed one of the children and you missed some benefit or credit related to that dependent. These are the kind of things that you're gonna need to file an amended tax form. The name of the form is, or the number is 1040X. What does the X stand for? I don't know, maybe X out the prior one, here's the new one. But it's an amended tax return. This is the form you're gonna need. Okay, so let's deal with what are you gonna do if you need to file an amended return. So we're gonna set aside the part if it's a small error that the IRS fixes and you're just gonna receive a letter about that fix. Set that aside and we're gonna talk about amending your return. So how do you do that? Well, first you're gonna gather your original document. So this is like your originally filed tax return and your correct or originally filed tax documents, the tax documents that went into that tax return. Gather all those up. Now, find and fill out the 1040X form. This form you can find online, and you're basically going to change, you're gonna put in your return, you're gonna create your return again, and then you're gonna make changes to it, and that 1040X form shows what you originally filed and then the correct filing. And then that'll result usually in a difference in what you owe or your refund amount. Now, once you get that all dialed in and you've got the correction on the 1040X, and by filling out the 1040 again, you're gonna wanna get it to the IRS. There's two ways. You can e-file amended returns, okay? This is a little tricky, you have to have some software, so you can e-file them going back a few years. Otherwise, you're gonna wanna mail in the return. You can always mail it in. Now, this is gonna take a little while to process. The IRS doesn't process amended returns as quickly as they do current returns. So you're gonna need to wait. If you mail it, it's gonna take a little longer. It could be up to 4 or 5 months. If you e-file it, it will be processed quicker, but still it's going to take a little while. There's actually a website, the IRS has a website you can go and track your amendment if you want. Look it up, Google IRS track my amendment. Now, what if you owe more taxes as a result of this amendment? Usually you're gonna end up owing or getting a bigger refund or getting a refund from an amendment. Usually it's one or the other. Theoretically, you can end up with a zero change, but usually you owe or you get a refund. If you owe, send the money in right away, because by the time the IRS processes it, it will be late to pay and there'll be more penalties and interest. So as soon as you figure out that you owe another $120, send in the $120. You may end up receiving a notice about interest and penalties on that $120 later, but that amount will be less than if you wait to send in the $120 after they process. Okay, this is a big tip. It can really minimize the pain of this kind of a change. If you're going to get a refund as a result of your amendment, just hang on. The IRS will send you a refund. No problem there. Okay, now what if the IRS catches the mistake first? Again, we're dealing with different kinds of mistakes. So let's take, for example, the one I told you about before where you swap the amount of withholding. If you send in your return and you say you have $842 worth of withholding, the IRS looks at it and they says, hey, you only have $824 of withholding, they'll fix that and send you the correct refund or change the amount you owe. But let's talk about the bigger mistakes. Let's say you forgot to report some income, like some gig work, and the IRS ends up receiving a 1099 showing this income, and you hadn't reported it on your return, and you actually forgot about it. You lost the 1099, you got something, you forget about it. Well, eventually what you're probably going to receive is an IRS notice called a CP 2000. Now, these usually take a year or more to receive. So this doesn't happen right away. This isn't like that change or that error the IRS catches when you've swapped a couple of numbers on the tax form. This one takes longer when the IRS later matches up your tax information with the information they've received from the third parties. So you'll receive this notice. Now, the important thing is to don't ignore this notice. I see this all the time. People will send me the notice, and the notice is either the second notice or the notice is a month old, and the IRS is already moving to the next level. Respond to the notice immediately. Deal with it. It's not going away. Okay, that's the biggest thing. If you could just take this, one tip from this video is if you receive a CP 2000, deal with it. Okay, all right, I made that point. Basically, the way to deal with it is if you agree with the balance, pay it, or they'll send you a refund. If you agree with it, let it ride. Otherwise, if you don't agree with it, there'll be some action on your part. What they want you to do at that point depends on the error. I can't go through all the different errors because there's hundreds of them, maybe thousands of them, different ways you can make a mistake on a tax return, but deal with it. Okay, so where does this leave us? So the bottom line on all this is if you make a mistake, don't panic. Just deal with it. They can all be dealt with, and the IRS is not going to come for you immediately if you make a mistake on your tax return. Minor changes and fixes the IRS will take care of automatically. For major mistakes, you need to file Form 1040-X and do that as soon as possible. Always double check your return before you send it off, before you e-file it or however you send it, so you don't end up with future errors. Now, if you need any help with this, let me know. Reach out to Tax Rescue CPA and like, subscribe, and hit that bell for future tax tips. Who's doing your taxes?